Lives in the car, and that is because when the whole family is home, it is very distracting because my office is not soundproof and I hear everything that is going on in the house. So I go, bye guys, and I sneak away and I get in my car. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about getting fierce, learning to love yourself like it is your job. Now, for those of you who have followed me for quite some time, you know that, that my channel is, here we go. Okay, that my channel is all about self-worth recovery and relationship healing and healing from toxic relationships. Now, the reason why all of those things coalesce together, why they become one thing, is because they're all intermeshed. And I want to explain to you first how, and then I'm going to get into how to love yourself like it's your job. Yeah. Okay, so the reason why that we are people pleasers in the first place is because we have this hidden shame and unworthiness that is what I call driving the train behind the scenes. What that means is that it is programmed into our unconscious, and it is looking and scanning the outside world for love, approval, and acceptance. In essence, it is looking for our worth. So we dim our light, we play small, we dumb down, we become yes man, we don't have any boundaries, and all that we want to do is please, please, please everybody else around us in hopes that we are going to get back to us that love, approval, and acceptance. So when I tell you guys that the miracle cure is self-love, that is because that is what we think we need to get from the outside world. So when we turn around and we start giving that to ourselves, that is when the healing happens. And this is a very simple antidote. I mean, I can't even make it more complicated than that, you guys. It is literally that simple. And it was a little bit shocking to myself as well when I went through my healing work so many years ago, because I had gone through just a disastrous relationship that basically left me homeless with 3 children and no means of income. And that was when I finally hit bottom, and I was like, all right, I need to figure out what the heck is going on here. And I vowed to remain single and celibate for as long as it took till I figured out what was happening. And I did the work. Now, I didn't know exactly what I was doing until I was on the other side of it, and I organically started to see myself behave differently, act differently, and think differently. And when I started to do that, I started to notice that my entire life started to shift. And it was in that moment that I went within and I said, what changed, Kristen? What changed? What did you do? And I realized for the first time that I actually felt worthy, that I had this inner self-worth inside that had been missing my entire life. So that is when I set course to write a book about it, which was my first book, From Doormat to Sweet Empowerment. You can find that on all major book-selling platforms. And now my second book, The Recovering People Pleaser, a spiritual guide to reclaim your true worth and attract the love you deserve, which is still in the publishing process right now, but that is due to be released in, I don't know, I'm going to say 1 to 2 months. It's been pushed out because of difficulties that we encountered along the way that were unforeseen, and but that's okay, because everything in life is purposeful, everything is in divine timing, and I'm not going to rush anything because I know that the universe and God knows better than I do, so it'll be processed when it's processed. So keep in mind that is coming up, so that's why you see my book on my banner, because it is going to be released very soon. So when I talk about loving yourself like your job, I wanted to share with you guys 4 tips to learn how to do this. One of the tips is to ask yourself if the behavior that you are receiving from the outside world, from whoever it might be, romantic partner, a boss, a friendship, it could be a girlfriend or a boyfriend, it could be your children, it could be your parents, it can be anybody. But if the behavior that you are receiving from other people, ask yourself this question: would this be okay? And then insert somebody that you love dearly, that you feel protective about, and you feel like you know what they deserve. Ask yourself if it would be okay if blank was treated this way. The majority of the time that we're asking ourselves that question, the answer is no, it would not be okay. The fact that we even need to ask ourselves that question in and of itself is an indicator that what is happening is not okay. But sometimes it does us more service to go a little bit further and to look at it in that perspective. So I tell people if it's not okay for blank, then it's not okay for you. And this healing journey is about awareness. We want, the more awareness we have, you guys, the better. Because a lot of times in life, people are ignoring what it is they are seeing because we are in these patterns, all right? And the patterns are created from our brain. It's the way we think. And we think some 60,000 thoughts a day. And can you believe that 95% of those thoughts are on repeat? That's why our patterns continue to repeat in our life, because we're thinking the same thoughts, which is creating the same behavior, which is attracting the same type of scenarios to us because there's a vibrational frequency to the thoughts, and it is creating patterns. That's how patterns are created in our life. So anytime that we are mindful enough to go, wow, there's a pattern here, which is what I did, what I told you at the beginning of this live, is there was a pattern for me. My pattern was I kept attracting over and over and over partners who did not respect and honor me. Oftentimes it could also been using me, cheated on me, and physical abuse. In my life, I had attracted 2 physically abusive people. And when I tell people that who know me, because I'm kind of a fiery person, I don't mean that in an aggressive way, but I have a lot of energy. I know right from wrong, those type of things. When that happened to people like looked at me like they didn't believe me. They were like, what? Because I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody because I was back in my people-pleasing mode and I was protecting those men. Just because I love them and I didn't want people to think poorly about them. So I wasn't out in the world speaking about that to people. And when I broke up with them, people were shocked. There's a couple of people that those relationships came in, the one relationship, the first abusive one, it came and went and nobody even knew until after the fact when I started talking about it. And then they were like, oh my gosh, Chris, what the heck? So the first tip is to ask yourself, is this good enough for blank? Insert your loved one that you love so much. If it's not good enough for them, it's not good enough for you. And at first, because we are functioning from this old programming, okay, it's going to be very difficult to implement a new behavior because we still have this old way of thinking that is arising, that is contributing to our behavior. So it's going to be difficult. And this is why I tell people it's oftentimes really hard to force the change in our life. Okay. If people would have told me, hey, just break up with cheater boyfriend or abusive boyfriend, I couldn't do it. And it irks me beyond when people judge people in those type of situations. Like, I don't know why he or she didn't just leave them. They are far more complicated than that because we are physiological beings. We have brains and we have engrooved patterns in our brains, and then we will stay in certain situations because we really don't know how to get out of it and then what to do once we're out of it, because if the person starts their old tricks with us, we tend to fall for that. So the key is to start to heal ourselves from the inside so that the outside world, A, will reflect something different to us, okay? It'll show us something different back to us. It's going to show us our worth because now we, on the foundational level, see ourselves as worthy, number one. But also, B, it'll magically have us show up in a way that is more empowered. When I started to see myself shift, you guys, I started to see like I just wasn't putting up with it anymore. And I wasn't rude and I wasn't mean and I wasn't unkind. I just didn't put up with crap anymore. I started to see things what they were, and when something popped open inside of me, when I felt that rush of what this person was doing, my behavior shifted and I stood up for myself for the first time. Okay, it's not for the first time because I had no problem standing up for myself. But what I did was I started to maintain boundaries. I maintained them like never before because I was no longer, excuse me, willing to sacrifice my sacred self to put up with something like that. I knew that I would rather be alone than to have somebody treat me in that manner. Okay? But that's a tough place to be for people because they don't want to be alone because they're scared to be alone because they think they have to get this love from the outside world. But what happens is, you guys, it's absolutely miraculous and magical is when we start to give it to ourselves, then we love our own company and we're okay in our own company. We don't feel lonely and bored and sad and like nobody cares, because the one person who can change that for us, we're giving it to. Okay? So people that enter into our lives become cherries on top of an already fulfilled cup, rather than us trying to make them the source. So awareness is key. Start recognizing things in your life. Now, this can elicit a lot of shame in people. This is a huge thing in my coaching business, my mentoring business. I see this a lot, that people are afraid to own their patterns, their behaviors, or all those type of things, because it makes them feel ashamed. They feel like something is wrong with them. They feel like it's their fault. And this is where it becomes this really strange little buffering cycle, because we feel ashamed. We won't look at our patterns. And if we look at our patterns, we feel ashamed, which is going to perpetuate the patterns, and then it just ends up going like this. So this is why the self-love tenets are so important. And this is number 2 of how to love yourself like it's your job. The self-love tenets are, and I'll go through them quickly. This is not the first time I've talked about them on here, and there is videos that outline them more in depth. But the first one is forgiveness of self. If I could give you anything for you guys to walk away from this live streaming today, it's going to be what I'm about to tell you right now. Although everything I'm about to tell you is serving. Is when you start to give yourself these 5 tenets of self-love, and you do it like it's your job, you can't help but shift. You can't help but shift. And everybody I know that I have met that has done this work, we all have the same experience of it. We're like, there's nothing like it. It's freedom. It's freedom, it's peace, and it's empowerment, all wrapped up into one little juicy meatball. And that has you showing up in the world as a different person. Number 1, from a vibrational foundational level, but number 2, from your behavior. So the first self-love tenet is forgiveness of self. What does that mean? Forgiveness of you or anybody else never means that we condone the behavior. It never means that we're going, okay, it's okay that I did that. That's not what we're saying. Okay, the behavior was crap. We know it was crap, and that's we need to own that it was crap, because if we're starting to brush it away and to ignore what we did, then we are not truly forgiving ourselves. We are actually trying to do a spiritual bypass, and a spiritual bypass doesn't serve anybody. And what that means, if you've not heard that term before, it means we're trying to do the healing, but we're trying to go around the healing. We got to go to the core of this thing. You guys will often hear me talk about pulling it up, like pulling a weed up, pulling it up by the root. Have you ever guys weeded? I don't know where you're from, but here in Arizona, if we pull a weed up by the root and you throw it down on the sidewalk, eventually that weed will dry up, crumble, and it will blow away. The same thing is true for us. We have to look at the things that we are judging ourselves about. Because guess what, you guys? Sometimes it's true. Sometimes we did a behavior that was not cool, but sometimes it's not. It's just this personal judgment that we have rolling around in our brain based on our programming. Okay, the programming of our past, that we're not enough, we're not good enough, whatever. But if we can forgive ourselves wholly, quickly, and radically for what we did, and we have this practice in place, and at first, again, it's going to feel weird, it's going to feel awkward, it's going to feel uncomfortable because we're not used to it. Same thing with riding a bike, when we were learning to walk, when you're making a new recipe. Anything that we start to do first is going to feel awkward because we're not used to it. But don't let awkward and uncomfortable stop you, because guess where healing is? Guess where your best life is? It's on the other side of your comfort zone. We've all heard that quote before, right? So it's going to feel awkward at first. So when I was doing this work, and I'll tell you how this forgiveness feels for me now, which is completely different. When I was doing this work, I would say, okay, you allowed crappy things to happen to you. You did this, you did, and I owned my stuff, but I owned it in neutrality. I just made a list of it. And then I realized that I was a child of God, and guess what, you guys? I'm fallible. And so are you. And we are going to make mistakes because, drum roll, because mistakes are how we learn. If we didn't have a mistake, we couldn't learn. Think about it. And what's the whole purpose of being here? Is to learn. Okay, that's the whole purpose of being on planet Earth. The soul entered the body, we're spirit in physical form to learn, to reach a higher level of consciousness. Okay, So when I started to understand that mistakes were so serving that I was willing to look at all of them. I was like, oh, that's a mistake. My bad. Own it. Forgive myself. Move on. Oh, that's a mistake. My bad. Own it. Forgiveness. Move on. What will happen is that you will retrain your brain, excuse me, you guys, to radically forgive yourself. It's called quantum forgiveness. What that means is you'll stop having to go through this process because eventually, guess what? You've wired yourself to forgive yourself easily. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't need to make amends or that you might not have to do a little cleanup work if you have, brought someone down with you in the process of that mistake, whatever it might be. Yes, as good human beings, we do. But I will tell you, knowing you guys, people who follow me are recovering people pleasers, right? You probably already do that. You probably own way more stuff than you should be owning. All right? But yeah, you go back into the person. So let's say I did something like raise my voice to my child. I was raised in an environment where my dad would raise his voice to us. My mom didn't, but my dad did. And it was part of my conditioning and my patterning that when you get frustrated or angry, you raise your voice because that's what was allowed in the home. So when I started noticing that I was doing that with my own kids back many, many, many years ago, I was like, okay, I don't like this. This is not right. So I would own it. And then I would take it to them. I would forgive myself and then I would take it to them. And I would say, I'm sorry for raising my voice to you. You guys don't deserve that. No one ever deserves to be yelled at, yada, yada, yada. And then the kids would always say, it's okay, mommy. But here's the thing, you guys, whether or not your person, right, that you made the mistake on, if you did, might be just to you that you need to apologize, whether or not they forgive you doesn't matter. What matters is that you forgive yourself by understanding that you are fallible and you did the very best you could at that time. The second self-love tenet is acceptance of self. What does this mean? Stop judging yourself, guys. Stop judging yourself. You know, if we truly looked at the judgments of ourselves, we were flabbergasted. Okay, you would be flabbergasted at what you see. When I started looking at myself and thinking that I was supposed to be something different, then I organically am. You know, I wish I was taller. I wish my stomach was flatter. I wish this. I wish that. And all these things. And judge myself. I felt terrible. And it kept me in a low vibration state. It kept me in a state of feeling ashamed and like unworthy and like there's something wrong with me. And I couldn't shine my light because inwardly I felt like something was drastically wrong with me. So the next thing is, and let me finish there. So learning to accept yourself for all of you, every piece and part of you. And then if another one comes up and you start to feel yourself judging yourself again, catch that judgment, rein it in, and do the work. I accept you. I accept you wholly and completely for who you are. Now, when I say that the healing journey is not hard, it just takes discipline. This is why, okay? It's not hard to say, okay, I accept myself. The words itself are not hard. But when you repeat it over and over and over again, eventually your brain is going to believe it as equally as it believed the disempowered thought, okay? The third thing is respect and protection of self, okay? When we make a decision, like I was saying earlier on, that you have to, if it's not good enough for a loved one, it's not good enough for you. This is what this is, respect and protect of self. When you're looking at other people and you're thinking, when someone is acting a certain way to you and you're like, that is not okay, be willing to stand up for yourself. Be willing to walk away or set whatever boundary that you need and maintain that boundary. This is not, I used to be a good boundary setter. I had no problem speaking up for myself back in the day. That wasn't an issue. I would be like, yeah, that's not cool. That's not nice. Why are you doing that? Whatever. But I didn't know how to set a boundary. I knew how to speak up for myself. But if word boundaries aren't working, then we must use action. And action boundaries are self-love in progress, or in action, in practice, okay? And what that means is we have to do whatever it takes to protect and respect ourselves, whether that means hanging up a phone, stop texting somebody, leave the party or the environment, whatever it might be, we have to be willing to do for ourselves. Okay? The part of us that is wanting so much respect from other people and wanting protection from other people, right? A lot of times it's the partners in our lives and we're attracting the opposite to us. It's because we have to learn to do it ourselves. And I know that's a tough thing for a lot of people to hear, especially women, because we're looking for men to protect us. And yes, we do. We do need men. They're designed that way. They're the brawn, right? They're the physical brawn. They're the ones that went out and did the fighting. And back in the day when they had to protect their tribes and their communities. However, there is a certain level of emotion protection that we have to be willing to do for ourselves, okay? And the fourth one is self-talk. This is a biggie. Oh my gosh, when I started to look at the ways that I was talking to myself, I was absolutely flabbergasted because I was nothing short of a bully. And it made me sad. It made me sad the way I spoke to myself. And I was like, wow, that is terrible. And this is one that I would have to say, out of all of them, this is the one that I have to really stay on top of, because this doesn't have to do with other people's behavior to me. It has to do with my behavior to me. So I got really good at setting boundaries. I got really good at forgiving myself. I got really good at accepting who I am. But man, that self-talk could beat me up sometimes. And I had to get really aware of the times that I was saying it and how I could tell, saying it to myself, and I could tell this would happen by the way I felt. And this is why becoming in touch with our emotions is so important, because our emotions are guideposts, you guys. They're guideposts. So many people are shying away from their emotions or ignoring their emotions, and that is literally, stopping you from your healing path, because our emotions are showing us what is working in our life and what is not working in our life. So if somebody is acting a certain way to us and we feel a certain way, that's our alert. That's it right there. Something's wrong. And at first we may not be in the power to fully show up at that moment, but at least we're alerted. And this is why we need to give ourselves grace and acceptance on our path, and grace and compassion on our path, because we may not be in that place yet. It might take us a little bit of time to process through, was that really okay? And what am I going to do with this? And I will assure you that it's 100% okay to set boundaries in hindsight. I posted a YouTube short the other day, and some guy said, leave stuff alone, leave well enough alone. I don't remember. He was doing all these quotes, and he was kind of a hater. And I was thinking, he just obviously doesn't get it. When we have the right to go back in hindsight and to set a boundary with somebody. We can, a day or two, a week later, even years later, we can call people up and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk to you about something. I'm feeling some kind of a way about XYZ, whatever the thing is. And then you share it with that person, okay? It is your job. But this is all about self-talk. So when you start to notice that you're talking terrible to yourself, it's really important that you catch it. You catch it. And you can't be a bully to yourself. Because when you're bullying yourself, you are lowering your vibration. And guess what lower vibration attracts to us? You bet. Users, abusers, jerks, narcissists, and cheaters. What I fondly refer to as the whack pack. Okay? That's what that low vibration is going to attract to you. So if you're continually having these type of people in your life, overruling you, controlling you, treating you poorly, all these things, go into your self-talk and say, how am I treating myself this way? When you start treating yourself this way, this is a fascinating thing, you guys, with all the self-love tenets. What happens is, so many times in life, we were treated a particular way, and for no other way to explain this, we got used to it. It became our baseline. And we're just used to being treated like that. So somebody else comes in, do, and they treat us that way. We might intellectually know that it's wrong, but we don't really, or we feel it's wrong. Our body feels it wrong, but intellectually we're like, people do this, and this has happened, and people that love me the most, that were supposed to love me the most, did this to me. So we're really not sure what's right or what's wrong. But when we start applying these tenets to ourselves, what happens is it's a beacon. In my book, I call it, it's like a siren, like a tornado siren blaring through a small town. All right. Before I did this work myself, I could kind of notice, I could feel when things were wrong, but there was this people pleaser inside of me that was driving my train, and I may have spoken up or I may not have. It depends on the person, but I didn't really hold a boundary. Now, when I get that alert, when that siren blares, it's like, whoa, not okay. Okay. And I don't do that, right? Sometimes I do. It depends on who the person is. But I will stop right there and be like, no, 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 no. We don't talk like this to me, or that's unacceptable how you're speaking to me right now, or how you're doing or being, or whatever it might be. And I will ask them first. I will make a request of them first to pull that in, rein that in. And if they can't, I will say, okay, no problem. I'm just going to pull myself away, because we're emotional beings. This person could be like, emotional for whatever reason, but that doesn't mean they get to treat me poorly. So then I'll pull myself away, and then they can come back to me when they're in a better space. Okay? So when we're talking nicely to ourselves, we are actually resetting our vibration, because again, we're training ourselves to think in these terms rather than the baseline of our youth. All right? And we will notice immediately when somebody is treating us to the contrary. And the fifth self-love tenet is, and by the way, I still have 4 tips. This is only the second tip, you guys. The fifth self-love tenet is self-care. Okay, what is self-care? A lot of people are using self-care and self-love kind of in the same arena, and they're totally different. All right, self-love is things that are of God. Okay, so what is God? Forgiveness, acceptance, compassion, grace, understanding, gentleness, care, those type of things. That is of God, and that's what self-love actually means. And under that umbrella is those things: self meaning of you, love meaning of God. So which means we apply the things that God is to self. That's how we reset. Okay, but the fifth one is self-care. So what does self-care mean? Self-care is the obvious things people know to be manis and petties, and going on things like that. Is the things that we need, right? That we need to care for our physical body, but it's all the ways that we need to care for ourselves in mind, body, and spirit. Okay, mind, body, and spirit. It's about getting really in touch with ourselves and saying, what do I need? What do I need right now? Do I need quiet time? Do I need to run? Do I need nature? Do I need a big, huge glass of water? You guys always see me with my big glass of water. In fact, do I need to cut down on sugar? Do I need more rest? Do I need to limit time with negative people? What do I need? And then giving that to yourself. These 5 self-love tenets will change your life. This is it. This is right. This is where the rubber hits the road, you guys. Okay, the third thing is to get fierce. What I mean when I say getting fierce. Fierce is not aggression. You'll never hear me talk about being aggressive, ever. Because guess what? You can get all your needs met. You can set all your boundaries with calm assertiveness. Okay? There is a quiet power to that people will respond to. Yes, there's times when we're going to join the fray because someone starts spouting off at us, and we might, be able to remain quiet for a while, in calm assertiveness for a while, but then it starts to get us activated, because anytime we're being attacked, the amygdala is going to respond. Okay, that's what its job is. Its job is to protect us. And it doesn't know the difference between a physical attack, like a T-Rex coming at you, or somebody screaming at you. The response is the same, and we want to react. It's called the reptilian brain for a reason, because it is designed to keep us safe. However, when someone is verbally attacking us or whatever, we, get into that state, and then we try to do the same thing, all right? That never gets us anywhere. That's actually 2 egos fighting, and I call it 2 rams. 2 rams fighting. They're bucking horns, and what happens? Well, how does someone win in this? One person will back down. But there really isn't a win, okay? Because nobody's changed. It's just somebody has backed down. So when we show up with calm assertiveness and we get fierce about it, okay? Fierce means I got my own back. I'm going to take care of me better than anybody has taken care of me. I am going to put the responsibility on me instead of searching the external world for somebody to do this for me. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean we don't want partners that have our back and that are protective and care about us and treat us well. But when we start giving it to ourselves, that's when our vibration changes, and that's when we will start calling those type of people to us. We can't call those type of people to us when we are playing small and we're needy and we're desperate. And like I said earlier, we got to own those things. We got to own needy and desperate, but make it look like this. God diggity, I am desperate right now. I can feel it. I can feel how it is. Or, whoo, I'm being needy. I'm being insecure right now. I can feel my insecurity. All right. When you take mindfulness into those type of things and you're like, okay, or you become aware of those type of things, you will then know what to apply. So let's say I'm feeling insecure. I'm really feeling insecure right now. I feel like something's wrong with me. Which self-love tenet do I apply to that? Oh, I apply acceptance. I'm judging myself. I'm making myself feel like I'm not good enough. So when I apply acceptance to myself and I say I'm whole and perfect just the way I am, and whatever the actual subject might be of that moment, is physical body, is it looks, is it, whatever it might be, is it a backstory, whoever, whatever it might be, I apply a self-love tenet to that thing and I clean that thing up. So it's like taking out your Windex and you clean that thing up and you throw away the paper towel, okay? You bring those things in and you clean them up, but it takes awareness to do that, but you get fierce about it. And the way I liken this, and this is what I did it for myself, I was like, man, someone treated my kid wrong, my mom wrong, my pet wrong. These are things that I feel were weaker than me and maybe could not defend themselves because my mom was getting elderly and she was sick. My kids were young, young children can't protect themselves or take care of themselves. And the same thing with pets. And I was like, well, how would I behave if someone, I'd get fierce about it, y'all. I'd be like, oh, hell no. That would not be okay. So I started to turn that on me. I got fierce about the way people treated me. I got really fierce about it. But this, again, doesn't mean that I got aggressive. It means I got very mindful and I took the energy of how I would be with somebody else and I applied that to me. Because guess what, you guys? The most important human relationship on this planet is the relationship with you. And I say human because one of the most important relationships is God. The most important relationship is our relationship with the universe, okay? With spirit. However, the most important human relationship is with you above anybody and anything, okay? I had, was functioning in a way through my life and showing up in a certain way through life because I did not have a good relationship with myself. So I was being a people pleaser. Now, a lot of people like to use the word self-abandoned or we've lost ourselves and those type of things, and that's all fine. I try to tend to stay away from trending words for a reason because when words are trending, people have to formulate what that means in their own head, and they don't really get a clear picture of it because a lot of people, they'll just say, oh, you're self-abandoning, and then someone's like, well, what does that mean, self-abandoning? And then they come up with their own definition. So I like to say that we have actually stepped away from our authentic self, our authentic center. We've moved away from that. We've fractured out because we feel like we have to please all these people out there. When really what we need to do is we need to go in and we need to tend to the needs of self. When we take care of ourself best, it's that whole put your oxygen mask on first thing. When you're on the airplane and they say you're tending for somebody next to you, put your oxygen mask on first or else you can't care for them. I have a friend on Wisdom who I just adore, the Wisdom app, who said this, and I've now heard this quote several times, so I'm not sure where she got it, but she said, stop lighting yourself on fire to take care of everybody else, which means we're burning ourselves up and there's a fraction of us left over. Do you guys know how amazing? We become bigger, better, brighter, stronger, more amazing, more light-filled when we put our oxygen mask on first and we take care of ourselves first. Okay? Get fierce about yourself. And the very last thing is to get mindful. Now, I've mentioned mindfulness several times throughout here. I've mentioned self-awareness throughout here. And what getting mindful really means is waking up in the morning, and I'll say this to Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit, help me be the love and light in the world today. Help me see everybody and everything through your divine eyes so I can make the best choices and decisions for all concerned. That has been my mantra / prayer for probably 10 years. Okay? But what does it mean? Holy Spirit, which means I'm calling in a new perception. Okay, A Course in Miracles talks about the Holy Spirit as the great perception shifter. So what this means is help me to see what I'm not seeing. about other people and myself. And this is calling me into me. So I'm paying attention to me. And when I know that I'm paying attention to me and I'm choosing higher perceptions, not just a change of perception that's from one darkness to another darkness, I am calling in higher perceptions. We have free will, okay? The Holy Spirit can come in and do work with us when we invite it to come in. So I'll say, Holy Spirit, come in, help me be the love and the light in the world today. That is invoking that in. So that so help me to see people and experiences through your divine eyes, which means through the eyes of capital L love, okay, capital T truth, so that I can make the best choices and decisions so I can choose correctly, okay, right-mindedness, as Buddhism says, I can choose from a right mind, so that, okay, now I'm thinking, so I can choose correctly for the highest good of all concerned. So what I'm doing is I'm showing up for me so I can show up better to everybody in my life. The most important relationship, you guys, is the relationship with you, with self. Mine with me, you with you. And there is no words that I can express to you guys, like literally no words that it can express that can truly embody this. I've been trying to express this for 10 years. When you change your inner world, your outer world is naturally going to shift. When you heal your shame and unworthiness and your people-pleasing behaviors, your outside world is going to reflect it. Anytime we don't like what the outside world is reflecting to us, okay, we're being treated poorly, things aren't working out for us, whatever, many times the human being wants to blame. Let's just take the word blame out of it, but it is a human word, so we have to use some words. But we want to blame the outside world, okay? We want them to be responsible for the way we feel. The highest thing we can do is to turn within. This is mindfulness, okay? Turn within and say, what do I need to shift, heal, grow, and evolve about self? What am I being called to heal within me that is going to reset my foundation, that is going to shift my vibration higher, that is going to yield me a different experience from the outside world? In my book, I talk about, well, let me just say this real quick. Okay, so you guys know I'm on the Wisdom app. If you guys haven't joined there, I'm not affiliated with Wisdom whatsoever as far as like affiliate marketing. I do not get paid to say what I'm about to say. The Wisdom app is a year old. It's simply called Wisdom, not the Wisdom app. It's called Wisdom. And it's available on iOS and Android devices. The Wisdom app is a place where people come on and they host talks live. And it's only audio. Okay, so you turn on the app and there'll be someone speaking and you can swipe through and you can see who else is talking and what their topics are. And you can follow people, but you can also join people up to the stage when they speak. And I spend a lot of time over on Wisdom. That's why I bring it up to you guys, because like I chose to do a YouTube live now, but sometimes oftentimes on my walk, I will do a Wisdom because it's just audio. Okay, so holding the phone and have it bouncing around on a YouTube live probably could be annoying. So I do it on Wisdom. But you guys can get over there and you can listen to me live on Wisdom. And if you jump over there and you follow me at Kristen Brown, you have to type it into the search and then you click follow. You will be notified, if you make sure your settings account for that, when I go live, because I don't have set times right now. And when I go live, you get a banner across your screen. You can jump on and you can join me live. So not only are you hearing me in real time speaking, but you can join the stage with me. Okay, all speakers can set a timer. It can be anywhere from 3 minutes to an hour. I usually do a 5 to 10 minute timer, and you can hit plus and you can come up and ask me questions. Or you can be quiet and just listen in the listener's lounge, okay? You don't have to come up to the stage. But my point is that when I first started getting on the Wisdom app, I was really afraid because a lot of what I did on social media was recorded. All right, I was writing blogs, okay? I started a podcast. Then I was recording videos. So a lot of what I did was recorded. And this was new. The live stuff was really, really new for me. So to join live, it was so scary. I remember wanting to push the button. I'm walking through my neighborhood, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm tapping through the fear, and I'm taking deep breaths, and I'm doing all the things because I know it's just fear, and I know it's an illusion, but it feels real. And then I started to ask myself, what are you fearing, Kristen? This is mindfulness, you guys. I'm afraid I'm not going to make sense. I'm afraid I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm afraid I run out of things to say. I'm going to, whatever it was. And then I tapped through it and I said to myself, is this true? No, people like what you say. Is it true that this will happen? And I started to envision myself in a place that I was received well. And guess what happened, you guys? Every time someone got up to my stage and they said, I couldn't wait to join your talk. I love what you say, yada, 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 yada. And I also shot up through the rankings and became one of I joined as a top mentor because when you are invited there, you were given the top mentor status. So I joined as a top mentor because I had a podcast and they listened to my podcast. They liked it. However, what happened was that my followers went whoop, like through the roof. And here I was thinking that I wasn't good enough. But I got really mindful. I paid attention to the fear. I paid attention what was happening inside my body. I caught my self-talk and I applied the tenets of self-love to me. I forgave myself for thinking this way. I accepted myself wholly and completely for the way that I speak live. Any mistakes that might happen, I respected myself. I was like, I respect who you are, Kristen. You can do this. You're an amazing person, yada, yada. And I gave myself self-talk. I applied those tenets, and guess what happened? The outside world reflected it back to me. So anytime we don't like what we're seeing out there, okay, it just means there's something going on in here. One of the probably the biggest breakthrough for me, you guys, and was when I started this healing journey. I call myself a spiritual coach because much of my, just so much of my healing journey had to do with me and God. It was me and God working together because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know any coaches out there. I wasn't even looking up YouTube for answers. I wasn't even really doing much on YouTube back then. It just wasn't my thing. Facebook was different back then. This is, 12 years ago, you guys. Facebook was not much. So it was just very different. There wasn't all this, information in the world. So I was doing this work by myself with myself. And I remember saying, God, something's got to shift. Please help me. And then God said to me, how have you been treated? Now, this was just a voice that came into my head. At the time, I just thought I thought it, but now I realize that it was such a new perception that was God. I asked and God answered, how have you been treated? And I said, well, I was disrespected. I was dishonored. I was abused. I was abandoned. I was, listed off the things. And then God said, now how have you done that to you? And I said, oh my God, I've disrespected myself like this. I dishonored myself like that. I didn't protect myself or respect myself like this. I abandoned and I just listed off the things, and the awareness that came over me because I was open, that was the jumping off point. It makes my eyes tear up. That literally makes my eyes tear up because it's so profound in my journey that it was a jumping off point for me. I stopped looking at the outside world and blaming everybody for their behavior. And I went within and I said, my God, it's me. But this didn't mean I condemned myself. I just got it. I'm not treating myself cool. You see what I'm saying, you guys? That's when things started to shift for me. So when I say to you that it's really important that you love yourself like it's your job, commit to your healing path like it's your job. I'm not just here, some random person that's reciting something else that I heard from somebody else. It's funny because people would come across my path and they'd say, oh, have you heard of so-and-so? I'm like, no. At the time, no. Because there wasn't those teachers for me. The teachers for me was spirituality. I was reading spiritual literature. I was reading Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I read Conversations with God. I was reading books on intuition and mediumship. I was reading books on Buddhism. I read the Tao Te Ching. I was reading all these things, but what I did, you guys, what it means to get fierce is that I opened my heart. I opened my mind because I was like, I can't do that again. I can't do that again. I don't want to do that again. I probably can because I've been through it so much, but I didn't want to do that again. I said, no more of that. No more of that. and my mind opened and my heart opened. And I would read literature and I would highlight. You know, I pick up Return to Love still. It's kind of my Bible, and by Marianne Williamson. And she's a Course in Miracles based, if you guys haven't heard of that. And I'll read through it every once in a while. And guess what? My highlighted spots, because they were so old now, they're faded. I can barely see where I highlighted. And I'm still re-highlighting. And every time I read it, I get re-inspired. Okay? There was a time when I first started to read it that I was like, oh my God, new thought, new thought, new thought, new thought. But I felt the truth of it, the truth that was of God. I felt it in my spirit. And I was like, okay, this is capital T truth. This is undeniable, unquestionable truth. And I had learned enough about the ego that the ego is lies. The ego is the lower self. Some people might want to call it the devil on one shoulder, okay? And our higher self is love, it's God, it's our connection to source, and it's the angel on the other shoulder. At any given time, we get to choose, you guys, who are we listening to? So when I started to hear, I started to learn these concepts. When I started to hear capital T truth, and it started to resonate, or read it, or however it came to me, I adopted that. I was like, that's true, and that's what I'm going to believe. Because I know by now this wasn't serving me, okay? And the ego is purposeful, and it's here for a reason. It's designed to protect ourselves. We needed to have that piece of our psyche, all right? But the problem is it does a really, really good job of scaring the crap out of us. It does a really, really good job of telling us where where we may potentially get hurt, and it keeps us small and constricted, all right? But what does truth and love and God do? It expands us and grows us and makes us feel alive. Okay? So part of this journey and getting fierce about it is which side of our head are we listening to? Right? Which psyche? Which one? Here's the really cool thing is that the ego is tiny. We think it's strong because it's loud. The ego is the first voice in our head, and it is screaming at us. You're going to get hurt. That's going to happen. You're going to make a jerk out of you. You're going to embarrass yourself. Whatever it's saying, it's over here screaming at us. We're like, oh my God, right? That's what my ego was doing to me when I was first joining the Wisdom app. But here's the thing. It's loud, so we pay attention to it, okay? The second voice in our head, I was trying to get out of something and it switched screens. I'm glad you're still here. The second voice in our head is the voice of God's Spirit. But where this one is screaming and yelling, this one is calm and neutral. They call it the calm, still voice within. But we got to quiet this guy to hear this guy, okay? And if this one's screaming, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You guys have heard that saying, right? Whatever wheel's squeaking the most. This happens in households too with children. It usually a lot of times the problematic child gets the most attention, but the quiet, good child that is doing all the right things doesn't get the attention, right? Because this one's making all the noise. And I had one of those. I had a loud one and the quiet one, and I tried to really make sure to balance, who was getting how much of my attention, because I didn't want the quieter one that was doing all the right things to be ignored, right? They're all great. My kids are amazing. So my point is that knowing that the ego is loud, it's loud and it's screaming at you, okay? But it's also designed to keep you small and to keep you stuck. And the longer that you listen to it and you subscribe to those fears, the longer you're going to stay small and stuck. But the voice of God, the voice of spirit, angels, guides, guardians, whatever you want to call it to you, it is a calm, still, neutral voice, but it is powerful. So when I started doing the work and I started turning around my false beliefs and I started what I did not know at the time, I was retraining my programming. I was resetting the foundation that I was showing up to life. I did not know that, you guys, until after the fact. When I started to do that, guess what happened? The ego got smaller. And this is what they call relinquishing the ego. Okay, you can hear it be called undoing the ego. People want to say killing the ego. We can't kill the ego. We don't even need to kill. We don't even need to kill or want to kill the ego. It's okay to have that counter voice, because, sometimes it could be right. But for the most part, it really is true that your intuition and your God self is going to guide you in the absolute most powerful powerful way, because this is always true. So when you get that fear that arises up inside of you at first, like, don't do that, be scared, be scared, be scared, go, okay, I see you, ego. I see you and you're loud, I get you. And you're trying to protect me, so thank you. But I'm going to wait, I'm going to get quiet. It's got to get quiet, you guys. We can't heal that whisper. Fear is a whisper. Or I'm sorry, fear is a shout, God is a whisper. Fear is a shout, God is a whisper. We can't hear the whisper when somebody's shouting. So we recognize the shout. We say, okay, I hear you, I see what you're trying to do. I'm going to listen over here. I'm going to get quiet. When we get quiet, you're going to hear the truth come in. That's the truth that you want to listen to. That's God. That is the absolute highest superpower force of the entire universe. And the more that we can turn our attention towards God, what happens is the ego diminishes. And guess where we spend more time, God? Or guys, we spend it over here in our higher self. This doesn't mean that we don't still vacillate from time to time back and forth. That's going to happen. Okay, that's part of the human experience. That's going to happen. But we're going to do it less and less. We're going to become more aware of this loud voice over here. And then we're going to have the choice, the free will, to choose this voice over here. So when I started off this broadcast, I named it Love Yourself Like It's Your Job. I want you to take care of you. I am the conduit. I am the person that is sharing the information with you, as you probably listen to a lot of other teachers or influencers out in the world too. But I can't do the work for you. You have to do the work for you. Many times people like, I remember when I took a group of ladies through the Self-Love to Soulmate Masterclass. We went through it as a group. And now I'm getting, like a year later, I'm getting people coming back to me and going, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like one of the girls who actually is local, she took me to lunch and she's crying and she's like grabbing the bill and she's paying. And I'm like, girl, what are you doing? I want to pay the bill. And I said, I was going to buy you lunch. And she goes, no, you don't know. I'm so grateful for you. So we can be grateful for a book or be grateful for a person or be grateful for the video we watch or whatever. But what I said to her was, be grateful to you because you learned to love yourself like it was your job. You got fierce about your healing. And I even asked her what she did. She goes, Kristen, I kept that notebook. I kept writing in that notebook. She said, I kept doing all the things. And now she is engaged to the sweetest, kindest, most loving man who's willing to make adjustments in her life, in his life, to accommodate her in his life. He's protective and he's respectful and he loves her, but she did the work. So I am here to inspire you guys, to motivate you guys, and to deliver to you guys some things that really work, and that is self-love. And it is my inspired mission. When I came out the other side of that, I wanted to stand on the rooftops and I wanted to shout it to everybody. You don't have to suffer anymore. There is a way. And that quote is actually in my first book, because that's how I felt. I was like, guys, everybody, come, let me talk to you. We are acting from my low battery mode just came on, but we are acting from a programming that is not serving us. And it is programming that is telling us that we are unworthy and there's something wrong with us and we're too much and we're not enough and we can't have the good things and everybody else has something better than we do, and it's simply not true. You are perfectly designed. There's no mistake. God doesn't make mistakes, you guys. Let's think about that. That was something that I read along the way, and I was like, I'm not a mistake? Like the way I think and I act and my own particular gifts and talents and traits and physical body and all this was on purpose? Okay. And the same thing is true for you. God doesn't make mistakes. You are whole and perfect. Yes, you might have acquired messages from the outside the world that was telling you contrary to that. Yeah, we all got those. But it doesn't mean they're true. Because the only true judge, for lack of a better word, I want to try to come up with a better word, but the only true judge of our worthiness is God. But God's not judging us. That's why I don't like that word, but you guys get me. God doesn't judge us. We are divine sparks, okay? We are part of this whole. We are divine sparks that entered into a body to have an experience. We're whole. We come here, we learn all this stuff, we think something's wrong with us, and then the spiritual journey is returning back to that unconditional love that we came here with. Vibration, energetic frequency will attract people and situations to us. If you don't like what is happening in your outer world, it means there's something going on in here. That doesn't mean you're to blame. It's just an indicator. Don't judge yourself. Recently, I went through something where something was happening in my outside world, and I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like this thing that was happening. And I went, okay, I know enough now that's called contrast, by the way. If you guys are law of attraction people, it's contrast. It's the opposite, right? It's the contrast of what you want. And I went, okay, contrast is serving, because contrast is our indicator that we're not in vibrational alignment. Thank you, contrast, right? Instead of pouting and being mad that we're having this experience, it's like, oh, I get it. I'm not in vibrational alignment with what it is I want. Okay, I'm believing this, and that's what's coming to me. Thoughts create things. Thoughts create experiences. Thoughts create people coming to us. Thoughts create things is a quote that was devised and derived from the wonderful and fabulous Mike Dooley. You guys know who he is. Huge law of attraction person in the world. Notes from the universe. Thoughts create things. So when things are coming to us, we know that we got something going on inside the programming that we just need to clean up. It doesn't have to be a big drama. It doesn't have to be really complicated. And you guys will hear me saying this all the time too, that the healing path is not complicated. It's just different. It's just different. We're learning to see things through a different lens. Okay? We got this program running over here. We're repeating those 90, okay, let me say this again for people that have just joined. We think something like 60,000 thoughts a day. I didn't make this up. This is per the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. 90 to 95% of those thoughts are on repeat. And if thoughts create things, then we're repeating the same thoughts, which is creating the same experiences. That's our contrast. That is designed to show us that our thinking is off, that our beliefs are in a negative place, in a low vibrational space. So when we can catch that, all right, what am I believing to be true? I remember one of mine, I'm going to say it. No man will ever want me. That was one of my beliefs 12 years ago. No man will ever want me. Oh my God, of course I felt like crap. I had so much anxiety. That was just one of them. You guys, I had like 10 I had to undo. All right? But I didn't judge myself. I dedicated myself to the process. I committed myself. I made it my job. And I changed, and I healed, and I grew, and I evolved to the place where, and I've always been a person who, I'm a bully buster. I don't like people bullying people. It drives me crazy. I don't like people hurting. I call people into me. I'm a listener and whatever, all those things. And when I knew, because I hate to see pain, when I knew that we didn't have to keep or didn't have to experience that anymore, I couldn't wait to share it with people. It took me 3 years to write my first book. 3 years. Why? Because I was working full time. I was still doing hair at the time. Living with my parents. My mother had cancer at the time. My stepfather was getting up there in age too, and he needed help. And my daughter had some things going on with her. My big kids. I had a lot going on in my life, you guys. And I was trying to find words to this experience. I couldn't believe the miracle that came into my life. And I was trying to find a way to explain it to people. And then I published that book. My second book, The Recovering People Pleaser, A Spiritual Guide to Reclaim Your True Worth and Attract the Love You Deserve. 6 months. 6 months. That's how long it took me for that. Because I had fine-tuned, I had figured out how to word this. And I knew there was a book brewing inside of me. And my husband kept saying, why don't you write another book? I'm like, man, not time yet. Because I let God guide me. I let God guide me. If I don't feel inspired to do that, that means I'm trying to how my way through life, which is what a lot of us do. We think, okay, if I get on the right dating platform, if I watch the right dating coach, if I send the right text, if I do this, that, and the other thing, it's all this howing, H-O-W. If we think we do those things, that we're going to get that experience, okay? Now, those things can actually assist on your journey, but they're not your true healing. They're frosting on poop. Sorry, that's my best one I can give you guys. What that means is that, I'm having a bad experience with this guy. Let me Google how do I respond? And then we send the response, and then we get a reaction. It might work for the time being, but the same old us shows up, and the same thing happens again. And then we're like, dang it, that text didn't work. I was in this one group that it's a guy that I just love, and I was in his group for the longest time, and I won't say what his name is. And it wasn't about me dating. I was married and stuff, but I really just liked him, and I liked his delivery, and I liked the stuff he talked about. And all I saw was women over and over again. He was trying to teach them how to show up in relationships and how to understand things, but they kept having the same experience. And I was like, then I would kind of pop in there and I'd talk about healing themselves and loving themselves. And then he would come in and love what I was saying because he knew that was it too. But that wasn't what he was teaching. And I said, bro, we got to collab. Because yes, everything he was saying was so serving. He was talking about how a man thinks. And that is very, very serving. But if we don't have that foundation of love and respect and honor for self first, then we're just putting frosting. Okay? It's not coming from that true energetic space. When you show up to your relationships from a true energetic space of caring and loving yourself, you can't help but have a different experience. Not just different, but improved. And I'm going to be doing a video real soon about how, I'll just say this real quick, but I want to expand on this. But what will happen also is as you start to raise your vibration, some people are going to fall away. Yep. Because you attracted them on this level. But as you start to heal your vibration, there's going to be a disconnect. Two things happen. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating what happens, you guys. Number one, their low vibration is going to start to bug you. You're going to just get a little irritated with them. It's going to be like, I don't jive with this person. You may still like them and even be friends with them, but you're going to feel it. The second thing is, you're probably going to start to bug them. You might start to annoy them, right? Because of the disconnect. But that's okay. Because when you look at recovering from attracting the whack pack, users, abusers, jerks, narcissists, and cheaters, we want that disconnection. We want that because we attracted them by being in direct alignment with them. So when we start to heal, we're out of alignment with them. And here's the best part. Two things. Number one, we no longer attract them because I don't care if you are a walking supermodel. If that is someone who is a narcissist or a toxic person, a user, abuser, and you are acting like you know your power and it's this quiet, beautiful, energetic strength, they're not going to be attracted to you because they know they can't get their way with you. They're not going to like it. They might even think you think you're all that, or they might call you things, but they're not going to be attracted to you. Okay? No matter what you look like. All right? But the other thing is, so not only will we repel them, if we do have them in our life, we're going to show up in a different way. And people that value you will either grow or they will go. And that might seem scary right now at your level of wherever you're at on your journey. Like, people leaving was scary to me at first. I was like, oh my God, why are people leaving? And this is what I was saying earlier, that I'm going to give a talk on this, like why friends leave our lives as we're healing. Like, do friendships expire? Okay, why and why? All right. But what happens is that we start to grow, and they will either grow or they will go. But you win either way. You win either way. And I think this is a great place to leave this conversation. So what that means is You're going to win if they stay, because that means they value you and they're willing to meet you at your boundaries and your healing and your growth and treat you the way that you treat yourself, or they're going to leave. They're not going to treat you that way. They're going to go. But guess what? The world's most best thing is that the universe abhors a vacuum. So where space is created, the universe is going to seek to fill that space. So if you've raised your vibration and these people left, there's a vacuum. The universe goes, whew, but it refills from the level of vibration that you are now at. That's what I got for you guys today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining in. I really appreciate it. I love doing these lives with you guys. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this after the fact, be sure to send me a comment, because I love to read your guys' comments. I love to read them because I like to hear what's resonating with you, but I also like to be alerted of questions that you might have that are coming up for you, so that it inspires me for future videos. But also, if you're also new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can be alerted when I upload new videos. And if you think somebody could benefit from this today, I would really love if you shared with someone that you love. Okay? So thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Mwah. Much love.